I will now like to invite Francisco Guerreiro to the floor. So Francisco is a Green MEP and someone who's very active in all things food, not least through his role in various parliamentary committees, including his role as Vice Chair of the Agri Committee. So Francisco is here to talk to us a little bit more about tackling dual food quality at the EU level. I will just remind everyone watching that you can continue to submit your questions to Francisco throughout his presentation. And don't be shy, put your name if you'd like to. If not, you can stay anonymous, that's also fine. Okay, Francisco, the floor is yours.
Hello, good morning. So thank you, Natasha, for being with us once again. And so also very active on these issues. Thank you very much. And also the organizations that are running this debate. I would say that there are several key aspects of this dual food quality issue that are really important for us in the European Parliament. I think this is a question that will have some issues when being debated in upcoming future here in the Parliament. So let's see what will be the action of the Commission. But I do think this is a really important theme by several areas. I would say first, due to the internal markets, so the single markets, we are in the European Union trying to harmonize legislation to have a fair competition. And so companies, especially the smaller ones, will have the same opportunities regarding the products that, as we know, have the same label, the same packages. And so this can be denoted as unfair practice because not only the bigger companies can benefit from these practices because they invest a lot on marketing, but they don't obviously invest on explaining the differences of the same product in different areas and different countries of the EU. So I would say the first part would be to understand that this can be an unfair practice regarding the single market, and especially directed to smaller companies. And so that's a very, very important issue that we should be talking about. On the consumer side, I would say that this would be probably the most catchy and most relevant part to bring up this issue to the general public, because obviously the majority of the consumers, the EU citizens, don't really know that this is happening, and so they can be misled directly or indirectly buying this type of products while traveling inside the single market and the European Union. And so the majority of EU citizens don't really know that this is happening. And so on the consumer side, it's very important to have organizations that are talking about this issue and that are pressing the EU institutions to tackle this problem. And so I would say that information, it was said here, that is very relevant for consumers' perception of what is happening. So talking about the issue, alerting that it is an issue, and obviously trying to through different layers, member states, the Commission, and also the Parliament, trying to understand how can we go in the right steps to harmonize these directives and these regulations that are across several areas. I could see this being debated on Agriculture Committee, a PESH Committee, single markets, related several of these issues. Also in health, that is the topic that I'm going to jump into. And so the third point that I would say is very relevant also is on the health issue. So when you are talking about consumers' perception, we are also talking about science and scientific guidelines that are met in several products, especially the food and beverage. And so when we have this discrepancy between member states, we are dealing with the information that consumers have on the health issues. And so science says, and we all know that unfortunately EU citizens have bad consumption habits, and so they eat a lot of processed foods. They have a lot of issues with obesity, diabetes, that is also connected to foods. And so we might be thinking that, for example, in Portugal, we are having a good product with low quantities of sugar, and then we go to other countries. This is merely rhetoric. I'm not saying that Portugal is better or worse, just for the example. And we go to, as it was said, some Eastern countries, and then we send the same product with same package, same labeling, and we have different types of sugar on it. And so this is also a health issue, and obviously we should tackle as it is also. And so I would say that it's very important for us to look at this scope as an health issue and try to harmonize it through the guidelines of science. Having all these areas covered, we all know that the Juncker Commission tried to start a debate around the subject, as it was said by my previous colleague, Silvia, but it didn't pick pace. So let's see how this commission will tackle this issue. We missed an opportunity on farm to fork because it was not clearly mentioned anything about dual food quality. We have a mention that says that the farm to fork will also support enforcement of rules on misleading information, and this can open the door for us to try to understand that this might be regarding dual food quality, but it doesn't specifically say so. So I would think that we could have made an opportunity to be more clear this part of the text, but it was not made. So let's try to use this definition to try to better our legal process and trying to understand how we could tackle dual food quality through several institutions. I do think that mainly the ball is on the field of the Commission, but obviously the Parliament can have several actions and can try to push the debate on several committees, and also trying to make some questions to the Commission, understanding how is the time framework for the Commission to tackle this issue, and if it is a priority or not. I think it's a very important subject, and obviously we are not in a federation, so it's a hard process for us to harmonize these concepts through all the institutions, Commission, Parliament, probably Council, through the member states and national legislation. But I do think we should aim to follow the science to try to harmonize this issue through several legislative process, and also always having into account the health of the citizens, the fair competition of single market, and the best information that we have to consumers. So I would say that these are the major priorities, and obviously me and my group, and I do think other groups also will be very, very focused on trying to speed up this process.
Thank you very much, Francisco. A great overview there. I've got a few questions here for you from the audience. I also have a few questions myself, because I think you touched upon some very interesting points there. So our first question I will take from Antoine De Hayes. So Antoine would like to know, firstly, he thanks you for your presentation. He'd like to know what active role should EU policymakers play to further improve information to consumers and to tackle dual food quality?
Well, we have plenty of resources, so the Commission can start some procedures to try to analyze through the different legislation where this problem can be tackled. Also presenting a time framework to analyze how these several directives or regulation can be changed. Afterwards, also the Parliament will be called through the committee, to analyze also these papers and these positions, and in the end, probably in some areas there can be some type of dialogue between the Parliament, the Commission, and the Council, because this also reflects on the member states, and obviously they have a voice on it. And so the main goal would be for the Commission to have this initiative, and afterwards the parliamentaries through the committees try to add and improve the work that is being done. I do think that this is a fairly easy process in a way that is not, well, it can have some issues regarding industry, so I might see some blocks there, but in the end I do think that this is a very reasonable subject, and so we should always be focused on science, on consumer protection, and also on the single market and health. So if we have this into account and use science as our compass, we should achieve a pretty straightforward harmonization of the legislation.
Mm. And as Silvia mentioned in her presentation, she was saying that the issue has gained importance in recent years. We looked at the Juncker Commission, in his State of the Union address. I'm wondering, do you feel the issue is taken seriously enough, or is it overshadowed? I mean, I know you mentioned also it was a missed opportunity in the Farm to Fork strategy.
No, clearly it was a missed opportunity because there were, as I would say, bigger tofu to fry. And so this was like a secondary parallel discussion, but nonetheless, it doesn't mean that it should not be taken into account. Yes, we missed the opportunity on the strategy Farm to Fork, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't do this debate, that we shouldn't try to harmonize the legislation, and also include the positions of member states, trying to understand how we can speed up this process. And so we also learn from our mistakes, and I think that's very important when we are talking about politics. And so we are not always right, and we don't always achieve what we want, but that doesn't mean that we could not learn from our mistakes and try to speed up the process now that we do understand that this is a real question and a real problem. But obviously that there are real solutions, and so we should stick to it.
And we had a question from the audience, asking about maybe why the issue is so difficult to tackle at the EU level. And I just wanted to build on that a little bit, because you highlighted in your presentation that this issue relates to a number of committees in a number of areas. You mentioned agri, PESH, single market, I think Santé as well. And this is something we're increasingly dealing with. I mean, things don't fall neatly into categories anymore. So I'm wondering how we can kind of facilitate cooperation between all of these different committees and different viewpoints on issues, on this issue, and also maybe more widely on other issues.
Yeah, I think that's also the beauty of the EU institutions. So things are not simple, they are not pretty straightforward, and they normally are not work only in one committee, and don't start sometimes even in the committee. So there's a lot of process, there's a lot of timelines, but what I notice is that if we do tackle this issue as a priority, and the committees are involved, and the Parliament is involved, and also the Council and the Member States are directly involved, we can fairly quickly manage to harmonize this legislation. And I'm talking about this one, but obviously this relates to several other issues. But when the citizens understand what's at stake, and the NGOs and several institutions that work on several levels are actively working also to try to present solutions, I do think that this is a fairly easy way to solve the problems. I would say that we might have some issues regarding some corporations or some associations that are more on the industrial side that may have some issues regarding this debate, but it's part of our daily life, so we have to manage that, and now again trying to use science as our compass so we can have the best results regarding the single market, the consumer protection, and the health of EU citizens.
We have a number of interesting questions that have just come in. So we have this first one here from Frederica Dolce. And Frederica would like to know, so certain companies argue the differences in compositions emerge, according to different consumers' tastes. That's something I've heard many times. So different tastes on national markets. She'd like to know your thoughts on that point.
Well, I don't think I do understand the question, but let me see if I
maybe I can elaborate.
Yeah.
So companies will say there are differences because consumers have different tastes in different countries, not because it's a lower quality. And I think that's what Federico would like to hear your opinion about.
Yeah, but the thing is that if they have the same package and the same labeling, they are misleading the citizens, the EU citizens. We are talking about a single market, so the rules should be harmonized. So if I'm Portuguese and I'm traveling to, I don't know, Germany, and I look at the same products, at least it looks like the same product, the same packaging, but the definitions are in small letters, and I have to make a comparison between them by reading all the things. Well, I do think that's an unfair practice, and taste should not be the arguments here to maintain the system. I think we should have health reasons, and so if we have guidelines to, for example, use sugar in some products, that must be the rule in all the EU. So through health reasons, I don't know, a chocolate that it has the same level and the same image should not have more sugar in Germany than it has in Portugal. And so I do think that we should have this common base of science, health, and nutrition to guide us through this maze. And well, I don't really think that taste should be the main driver of this discussion, because even taste it's a very unscientific way for us to analyze this dual food quality problem.
Absolutely. Okay, and I have a question here from Gabriella Galindo from Politico. So Gabriella would like to know, with the farm to fork now kind of past us, what are the remaining legislative or regulatory vehicles that we can act on with the dual quality of food? So obviously you did say that it was missed as an opportunity in farm to fork. What's coming up that we can use to help us with this issue?
Well, I would say that it's on the role of the Commission to try to assess in which files this dual food quality can be worked on. Several, it was stated here, and Fair Commercial Practice Directive can be also updated. We might have some process that is being made here in the Parliament, but I would say that the majority, the biggest action should be the Commission to try to assess first if it is a priority, and if it's so, which are the main directives and regulations that we should be talking about, trying to amend them or trying to improve them. And so we then go to the process that the Commission makes a proposal, a timeline, and then the committees work on it and try to assess what is the best amendments that we can have and what's the best proposals or recommendations that we should have. And in the end, well, this has to be coherent with all the legislation through all the committees that Natasha also stated. So we have several other committees that can be tackling this issue. So the Commission should assess what the committees are, the legislative files that can be amended or changed should be, and the timeline, so we can clearly understand if we are talking about a 2, 3, or 4 year period or more to try to harmonize this question.
And let me just take one last question for you before I let you go for the moment. So I have a question, an anonymous question here for you. So the narrative around dual food quality often revolves around consumers' need for information rather than companies' liability. Do we need binding measures to ensure that consumers are not left lost and that companies are providing clear, transparent information?
Yes, and we see that through clear regulations, science-based regulations, we have those binding targets not only to companies, and so they can have their fair practices and fair competitions, but also citizens can have the clear information, and also not being always aware that they should have to verify all the ingredients in products that look the same. So that also is misleading. So we should try to build this confidence on the single market by simplifying the process to consumers, and this will also simplify the process to companies. If they have the same quantities of food and salt or so on and so forth in their products that are the same in the EU, this will be far more easier for them also to commercialize their products. So even at the industrial side, I would say that, and the company's entrepreneur side, this should be a very straightforward and easy way to go, because this will diminish costs and obviously be more reliable when they are marketing and selling their products.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Francisco. I do really enjoy your bigger tofu to fry. Maybe I'll have to steal that phrase from you. Okay. Thank you very much.